Like any right-minded individual, I firmly believe in the principle that the foundation of any healthy society is sufficient access to violent video games. A foundation which is only enhanced if said games also serve to encourage the ruthless exploitation of other people's resources, and a firm adherence to vainglorious self-aggrandisement. And whilst our access to such games has been severely threatened in recent years by a huge influx of shit product and the systematic destruction and wokery of many legacy franchises such as Call of Duty, Battlefield and Far Cry, I am pleased to report that there are still games out there that provide an excellent balance of both violence and greed-based acquisition mechanics. One such game is Deep Rock Galactic. I guess I should outline my personal experiences and level of play with DRG. I bought the game back in early access and played it for a while, when it was in its infancy. I liked it a lot and I rated it highly, even though I was primarily pootling around at low level, playing solo and just relaxing with my mining axe. Between then and now, many people have raved about this game to me. Multiple people have asked me to review it, including someone who probably knows more about video games than anyone I've met. So I dusted off my helmet and my pickaxe and put on my fake beard and went down the mines once more. I actually own a pickaxe, FYI. I'm still fairly low level due to my lackadaisical playstyle and the fact that I just like solo lolling at my own pace. I was, however, kindly taken on a night out in the mines by a group of mates from the US, who held my hand, protected me from the bad men, showed me the ropes and explained the dynamics of squad-based play. I got to spend a whole evening being chaperoned around the mines in a 4-dwarf squad. They are all very experienced, done endgame content, and they allowed me to pootle along riding shotgun. Literally on one occasion. I rotated through some different classes and got to see firsthand how the group dynamics play out and the group synergy works. So my sincere thanks to the guys at Nerd Funhouse for sacrificing their evening and dragging my proverbial arse into the proverbial pit. Archangel, YL Comsor, J Macafreak, with an honourable mention going to the inimitable Laser Kid. J Macafreak incidentally streams on Twitch, link in the description. I'm sure that if you head over to his channel and politely harass him, he could possibly be amenable to streaming some DRG for the masses. I need to qualify that I'm still relatively inexperienced with this game compared to an experienced player, let alone a professional dwarf. My DRG noob status was made very clear to me during my sojourn with veteran players. It felt like the first day on a building site, being shown around by career framers and roofers. So yes, some people might get triggered by the gameplay footage because I just like wanking in the corner with my pickaxe, admiring the views and generally not approaching this game as competitively as some people might consider normal. I am not normal. So what is Deep Rock Galactic? Deep Rock Galactic is a first-person shooter, mission-oriented, single-player or co-op, dwarf-based mining, exploration, survival-ish, combat and resource collection game, with an inbuilt pub and activity centre base of operations. It's basically about dwarves, mining, fighting and drinking. And yes, I mean that literally and figuratively. Developed by Ghost Ship Games from Daneland, a small indie developer once upon a time, they set out with some vague ambition of combining Minecraft with Left 4 Dead and ended up making this. It's published by Coffee Stain Studios, famous for either developing and or publishing some incredibly iconic independent video games like Goat Simulator, Satisfactory and Valheim. They are generally known for being a publishing hero of the independent gaming scene, having an exceptional talent for sniffing out things that people will like. And most notably, being bought out by yet another entertainment megacorporation. I guess noble independent video game companies are a bit like pretty girls' arses on the beach. Sooner or later, someone's gonna come along and stick a dick in it. The financial waters, and specifically this game's technical status as an indie game, are somewhat muddied by the corporate manoeuvring going on in the background over almost the entirety of this game's lifespan and development. Ghost Ship Games was an independent developer. Coffee Stain Studios was an independent developer / producer. But over several years and multiple transactions, basically Ghost Ship Games was gradually bought out by Coffee Stain, and in 2018 the whole job lot of them were bought out by THQ Nordic. THQ Nordic are generally known for being involved with some quite decent games and generally behaving quite well. However, it is worth noting that they did fuck everyone over by pulling Metro Exodus from the Steam store at the last minute and taking Boku Dollar from Winnie the Concentration Camp Commander Pooh and Comrade Sweeney to make it an Epic Games Store exclusive. And thanks to the conglomeration and amalgamations of multiple companies under the banner of the Embracer Group, THQ Nordic is now one little part of the dysfunctional family tree of video game companies that have been gobbled up by the multi-billion-dollar Swedish video game powerhouse / shithouse. The only thing I can really say about the Embracer Group is they don't seem to be owned by Tencent. For now at least. So yeah, in the interests of clarity, this is developed by a former little indie company, published by a former indie powerhouse, it's been early access since February 2018, and they were fully gobbled up by Embracer Group in November 2018, later that year. So this is not a Dune Spice Wars scenario. Deep Rock Galactic might be going gold under the new flagship, but this was essentially a legit indie project at the time of release, in early access. Sort of. Only by the time it was fully released, it was now full corpo. In Deep Rock Galactic you are a dwarf miner, like in Tolkien books, only with space lasers and high-tech gear. And Tolkien books would have been better with lasers and spaceships. Just saying. You work for a futuristic mining corporation based on a space station in some random far-off planet full of mineral resources and innocent native occupants whose environment you are about to pillage in the name of profit. You, or you and your friends, or even you and randos go on single player or co-op missions into the bowels of alien planets and try to mine all the goodies whilst fighting off the hordes of pissed off native wildlife. Think Avatar, underground, only the aliens are slightly less ugly and a hell of a lot less like fat-faced pixies with tits. You jump in a dropship, get transported to some alien underground chamber, mine stuff, explore, expropriate all of someone else's natural resources, fight off the locals because colonisation is funny and profitable. Then, if you don't die, you come back to the base of operations that looks like a cross between the deck of a spaceship, a theme pub and a seaside entertainment arcade.
Ice cold and foamy.
You gear up, level up, spend points in perks, buy new gear, spam your kit up with cosmetics, and there is not a single fucking microtransaction in sight. In game at least. But more of this later. The game had amassed 300,000 players by September 2018 during early access, and on Steam, recent reviews are very positive. Overall reviews are overwhelmingly positive. It's good old-fashioned, enjoyable, violent dwarf-based fun that is well received by players and pulling incredibly high player activity numbers. Functionality and fuckery. There is no dialogue box in the rebind menu on the Reset Settings button. That basically means one misclick and you have all your shit reset to default and have to start all over again. It's also highlighted in red so your eye is naturally drawn towards it, and accidentally clicking it once immediately fucks all your rebinds. That's a bit shit. This aside, the game can boast a rather admirable fuckery-free environment. No loot boxes, no paid cosmetics, no in-game store. In fact, there is an in-game store, but it doesn't accept real money. You have to earn all your cosmetic items. You know, like back in the good old days, before evil people took over game publishing. I managed to rebind my keys to my bespoke, deviant and frequently maligned settings, change the field of view to what the fuck fisheye, and turn the music up, effortlessly and without any significant levels of apoplectic trauma. Perhaps some of these developers might consider doing some charity work for AAA developers who can't seem to unfuck their UIs, key binding and porting issues despite decades of trying, failing, and failing all over again. There has been ongoing development to address all angst from the player base. There was a gap of over a year between my play sessions, and there were a host of quality of life changes introduced in the interim. This game is very well supported by the devs, who seem to pride themselves on delivering as many goodies as they can to keep the player community happy. I'm sure it's not perfect, and I'm sure players have their gripes, but on a superficial level at least, this game makes Ubisoft's game support look like an incontinence competition at a swimsuit party. AAA publishers should look at Deep Rock Galactic and feel ashamed. Or they could just feel ashamed. I give not one fuck which it is. The basics of the game dynamics can be simplistically boiled down to this. You're a dwarf and you go on missions. You go in a squad of dwarves of up to 4 players. If you're a friendly, affable, sociable dwarf. You go on your own if you're an unfriendly, miserable, antisocial dwarf. Like me. You basically jump into the dropship, which rightly is conveniently located outside the pub in the recreation area, because everyone with an ounce of common sense knows that people work better after a few beers. That's why the 70s and the 80s were so amazing. Cops could just get pissed and go on shootouts. No fucks given. Brilliant. You emerge into an underground cave network / violent, dangerous hellscape, and then have to complete missions, mine, connect pipes, etc, 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 all in order to make monies and hoover up shinies. Said work is seriously enhanced by your perks and equipment, which naturally you want to upgrade. Similarly, the pissy locals clearly haven't understood the entire concept of having all their resources stolen by a bunch of greedy, violent, amoral dwarf mercenaries. So, periodically, the native fauna and flora get very upset by your presence and launch massive alien bum rushes at you and your crew. Obviously, the best way to deal with this is by negotiation, and the most potent form of negotiation always comes out of the barrel of a gun. Although I'm warming up to missiles and grenade launchers as a form of discourse too. If you die, your buddies can revive you, and if you are solo, you have a little unsexy sex bot that helps you dig and revives you. I think once per mission, maybe? If everybody dies, you're fucked. But if it all goes well, when you've all finished, you have to run like fuck, get back to the dropship and get the fuck out, usually with some form of alien biting you in the arse, all the way back to your seat in the dropship evac. There are 4 different classes. All classes get certain common tools, such as a pickaxe, flares for lighting your way, a laser designator, a scanner mapping device combobulator thing. Similarly, every trip you have your little compulsory robot mule for collecting your resources. You fill your buckets and you empty the buckets into the mule. You naturally also have whatever else is required to complete the mission or collect the required resources. If you go solo, regardless of class, you get a little APD B317 companion robot, colloquially known as Bosco. He's like the floating R2-D2 of DRG, only unlike R2-D2, he flies around, helps you mine shit, comes equipped with guns to help you fight, and has the added bonus of not making annoying beeping noises. Too often. As you level up, you can level him up and fit him with upgrades to melt more face. It's a perfectly virtuous face melting circle. Additionally, each of the 4 classes have class specific weapons and a class specific support tool, and this is where it gets very interesting. Whilst the differences in the weapon loadouts make a difference to your personal playstyle, especially since some weapons lean more into indiscriminate area of effect violence, and some other weapons are more short range high damage or longer range high accuracy, the real kicker is with the support tools. The driller has a massive pair of handheld power drills and a satchel charge. The engineer has a platform gun and an LMG sentry turret. The gunner has a zipline launcher and shield generator. And the scout has a grappling hook and a flare gun. I'm sure you can already see where this is all heading, within the context of squad-based group mechanics. Having a driller on the squad means you have someone who can tear giant arseholes through rock, quickly creating mineralogical traversal sphincters into the next cavern, or quickly drill straight towards your dropship when you are shitting the bed and desperately trying to evacuate in a panic. The engineer can use his platform gun to shoot little platforms into remote areas of the wall, creating travel routes or convenient spots to mine valuable gold from difficult to reach locations. The gunner can set up zip lines to help the whole crew traverse chasms or to reach difficult to access platforms, and the scout can use his Batman-esque grappling hook to access pretty much anywhere, whilst illuminating the whole cavern for everyone by firing his flare gun to attach lights to the ceilings. And these secondary support tools further compound with the squad dynamics, as one guy can throw up a defensive turret, another a shield, and another can just drop a satchel of C4 on some fucker's head for lols. And yes, lighting is a big fucking deal down there, because it can get very dark, and darkness is bad when you are hundreds of kilometres underground on a strange alien shithole planet full of tentacled fuck beasts who are slightly upset that you are going full Deepwater Horizon on their lovely pristine natural environment. On top of all of this, you level up and unlock new stuff. Resources and cash get used to buy upgrades to your tools and weapons, and eventually buy newer, shinier, more violent guns. Leveling up and doing challenges unlocks perk points, and perk points make prizes. Basically, you have builds in this game. I don't understand them yet, but they are there. Thorns is a no-brainer. If something hits you, it takes damage. Running faster is a no-brainer. Carrying more minerals before you have to empty your fucking bucket is a no-brainer. You know the drill. There are all kinds of achievements that you can unlock and stuff you can earn to get free cosmetic items. It's a very old-fashioned concept that most people won't understand these days, so the best way to describe this antiquated notion is thusly. It's like a battle pass, only everything is free, because they are not trying to fuck you out of every last fucking penny you have in the bank. There are different types of missions, different difficulty levels, different types of mission conditions. You can roll with your mates, jump in with randos, or just do what I do and hate humanity in all its many guises and play solo, because who needs friends when you have a robot companion that never complains or points out your personality defects or personal faults? Oh, and since it's often very dark down there, obviously anything in the game that helps you light things up is critically important. Similarly, there are alien fuckbeasts down there that you need to kill, so anything that helps you light them up is important too. In fact, that's a maxim that applies both literally and figuratively. Whether it be with illumination or massive fucking firepower, lighting shit up is of central importance to this game.
Been working my ass off to get this.
So what's my overall take on Deep Rock Galactic? Well, it's a great game and worth every penny. There's no doubt about it. And the developer has done stellar work. It's one of the rare video games where I barely had a single bad thing to say about it. So I just tried harder until I fucking did. It's also worth noting that everyone I know who has played it likes it. In fact, they universally recommend it. It's a different video game experience depending on how you decide to play it. Ergo, whether you play alone, with randos or with mates. And very importantly, the difficulty levels. Personally, I prefer these kinds of games when I'm either chilling with my mates or solo on a low to mid-range difficulty. So it's enough of a challenge to be interesting, but not so hectic everyone knocks their beers off the table in panic. It's basically a sliding scale between relaxed gameplay and utter shitstorm, and you are the group leader in charge of the slider. The developer did a super balancing act with the 4 classes. The engineer, the gunner, the driller and the scout all have their own skill sets and tools. Yet it's all balanced so well you can solo the game with any class. However, playing in a 4-man team, the different classes complement each other and create great synergy. I saw this whilst playing with Nerd Funhouse. One person would be slapping up platforms with the platform gun, another would be setting up zip lines. Someone would be setting up lighting with the flare gun. The scout would be weaseling his way up to random remote spots. The sentry turrets would be thrown up at a strategic position for the inevitable alien environmental protest that would always end in a slaughter. It was squad-based play that worked best when, generally speaking, there was one of each class. Everyone had a job, they knew what it was, and everyone coordinated and worked together. It was actually nice to experience some legitimate squad-based play where it really felt like a team working as a group to be greater than the sum of its parts. And this is something that is dying out in games these days, and I don't see it that much in this age of publishers leaning hard into hero power fantasies where it's a giant YOLO DPS faceplant where everyone is rushing to unlock the next cosmetic loot box. In DRG, a group of 4 players working together and coordinating get more stuff done better and faster. It's a critical part of the experience. Do you remember the old battlefields where a squad would have a medic and someone running support to give everyone ammunition? Yeah, that shit. That shit that they're removing from most games these days. Replayability is a given here. Obviously, no 2 maps are the same when your maps are procedurally generated, but this obviously means different things depending on the game. In Age of Empires 4, as an example, this means that the resources are in a different place, but unless you choose the mega random option, it's mostly going to be randomness within very tight predictable templates. Mostly just about the position of the resource nodes, because it's a 2-dimensional map. Well, Deep Rock Galactic is a 3-dimensional mining game, so all bets are off. You have very little clue what the fuck you'll be walking into, and on arrival you can basically only see the immediate vicinity around you, radiating out from you in a sphere from the ground penetrating radar. As someone from Nerd Funhouse put it, Deep Rock Galactic has infinite replayability, and I agree with them. Basically, it's procedurally generated randomness within certain sensible parameters, so you never know what to expect. But what you get will follow a certain sensible, broad rule set. Ergo, the map isn't going to be some giant random vertical tube where you have to spend 20 minutes climbing down. It's very unpredictable, but it won't be daft shit. The environments are rather charming, to be honest. You know those beautiful crystalline caves with the huge salt crystals the size of tree trunks?
Absolutely magnificent.
Some of the caves in Deep Rock Galactic are literally as spellbinding and beautiful as that. Now imagine if they let you go in there with a fucking machine gun and a pickaxe and smash that shit up for lols. and then snaffle up all the crystals and sell them for a ton of cash. It's delightful. The base of operations is noteworthy in and of itself. It's hilarious how Ubisoft obsesses about having these base of operations in nearly all their games, yet they are getting progressively worse at doing it. I guess it's because they started out okay. Like in The Division 1. It was a base, you did useful stuff there, it was a virtual meeting place, and whilst not being necessarily entertaining, at least it was functional, had a little flavour, the odd wagging dog to trip over and get in the way, notable characters, and even a little dialogue playing on a loop, even if some of the NPCs in different parts of the building were identical cookie cutter models because laziness. It wasn't what I would call a clubhouse, it wasn't exactly a fucking rave, but at least it was not unpleasant, and it wasn't a bad place to nonce around in. Sadly, as Ubisoft's commercial ambitions transformed, so did their base of operation designs. The more they tried to turn them into hubs for selling in-game microtransactions, the more soulless and alienating they became, eventually reaching peak shitness with the veritable open-world soul-sucking shopping plaza that is Riders Republic. And I guess that's precisely what happens when you take a functional location of utility in a game and instead of adding flavour and entertainment, you try and turn it into a giant fucking shop. Entertainment is not equivalent to hard selling and marketing, a statement that is so blindingly obvious and patronising to even say out loud that had it not been for the existence of Ubisoft, I would never have been forced to utter the words. And if there are any Ubisoft monetisation specialists watching this, cranking the little handle on their loot box making machines whilst drooling into their copy of this year's children's swimwear catalogue, here is an example of why entertainment is not sales, and why they are not the same. Think of an episode of your favourite TV show. Now think of a shopping channel. They are not the same, right? And as soon as I said that, I realised that for some people, they probably are the same. So I give up. Anyway, the important thing of note is that in DRG, the Boo sets the standard. Not only is it functionally designed as your hub for deployment, upgrading, and for sorting out those ever so important free cosmetic items, but it's also entertaining. If you're shit-faced and with your mates, there are endless mindless crap to do. There are a few mini-games, a bar, you can literally buff yourself or just get so tanked you can't see. There are achievements to unlock, and it's basically a decent virtual clubhouse to play fuck around or fanny grab with your friends. It's like Ironforge, without the level 60 rogue ganking you in the auction house. The game has massive support from the players. The developer has done fine work fostering an active community and engaging with it. Even as a filthy casual, I noticed the changes that have been implemented over successive patches. They've basically justified the players' faith in them and this game as a project. And I would suggest you check out the Steam reviews so you can see for yourself what people are saying. It is also noteworthy that this is one of the rare occasions where the mainstream press and the customers are completely aligned for their praise of the game. The destructible 3D environments are hilarious, and an absolute OCD paradise to boot. Basically, you are totally in the three-dimensional realm here, with a 3D radar system, a 3D map opening up as you move around, dispelling the 3D fog of war as you explore. Now you might find yourself breaking through into a giant chasm, and depending on what class you pick, you may have no means to access something high up or far below. But no self-respecting, bearded dwarf miner ever leaves the house without his trusty pickaxe. So off you go, armed with an axe and your own imagination. Playing solo, I got involved in all kinds of mining antics, and sniggering at what other people would think of my particularly obsessive techniques for solving spatial route finding problems. I would carefully mine little steps up the sides of walls to reach my goal. I would tunnel out, up, and back out to emerge out of the wall much higher up, and then dig a little platform to work on. I would dig long tunnels into the side of caves, then turn around and shoot the alien scumbeasts from the nice security of my foxhole. a technique sadly gimped by the introduction of a boring alien NPC that drills to the rock and then attacks you in the anus. A bit like an angry alien version of that barbed Amazonian fish that swims up your weenus, although it might be an urban myth, just saying. Anyway, however strange these methods seemed to me at the time, when I spoke to other players, they all said, "Yeah, we do that," or "Oh yeah, everyone does that." It's basically a 3D destructible playground, where no idea is too stupid. If it somehow gets you from point A to point B, so you can get the job done, then fuck health and safety, you are good to go. Just think of those YouTube videos about builders in developing nations. Yeah, it's exactly like that. Obviously a large part of every mission is trying to snaffle up all the glorious minerals and resources, so you can buy new shit. But this occurs within the wider framework of the mission structure, as well as mining missions. There are on-site refining missions, egg hunts, salvage missions, elimination missions, escort missions. All this is combined with a host of complicating factors, and sometimes hopefully the odd windfall of abundance. You can do running repairs on equipment and robots damaged by alien attacks, call in a resupply to restock on ammo, and heal yourself by mining red sugar. These all occur roughly within the same parameter of you drop in, do your work, then call a dropship, a timer starts, and you need to get you, or you and your crew, back to the dropship within the statutory time limit, because it's leaving with or without you. This all creates a tension between speed and greed. You want to get in and out as effectively and efficiently as possible. You don't want to do all the hard work and then die whilst trying to extract. You don't want to miss the only dropship home. But since you're a dwarf miner, obviously you want to fill your boots with as much free golden minerals as you can stuff into every pocket, storage robot or orifice before leaving. So yeah, time is of the essence. Survival is of the essence, but it still didn't stop me from wanting to check out every single corner for a few more gold nuggets. I spoke to an esteemed colleague of mine, someone who is learned in the ways of the video game and a fan of DRG. His thoughts were these. Reading between the lines, I think what he was saying is that it's a great drop-in video game, because as a low-level player in PUGs, you will most likely get carried by the rest of the group, but at high level you can act as the person who can carry a group if things turn nasty. On the difficulty levels he plays, it's a game you can fire up, do a mission and move on. Shockingly, he has thousands of hours played. Now that is a metric that I don't think I've beaten on many games. Sure, I've racked up thousands of hours on several games that have been around for years and years and which I played for many years. World of Tanks, World of Warcraft and possibly some other long-standing titles, but not just a game that launched early access 3+ years ago. He also noted that he has never been unable to find a game to join. Not once. Although he's playing on PC and apparently matchmaking is a tiny bit ropey on PS4/5. He noted that he doesn't really like the most elite missions and deep dives on the hardest settings because by the end of it he feels entirely drained and ready for a break. But pitched at a non-Psycho Demon level, DRG clearly enthralled him to the point of obsession. As he stated himself, he likes the atomic parameters that sit on top of the core experience, like the changing parameters in the Division seasonal events. And as noted by many, the level design does a great job of being both procedurally generated while still making the randomness work within certain parameters and rule sets so that the maps are all different yet familiar. Also, the mobs scale with party size, so subject to coordination and communication, the difficulty of the experience scales directly with the size of the group, so you won't find yourself getting fucked because your party is a certain specific size or because you're solo. No discussion of Deep Rock Galactic would be complete without mentioning sound. The soundtrack is solid. All dwarf miners are fully voiced. Everything has sound effects. Because, you know, It's a video game, not a fucking silent movie from the 1930s. I've dug a few holes in rock using a 6-foot steel wrecking pole, and personally, I think the digging and tool sounds seem perfectly satisfactory. It's all very nicely and professionally done, from every chinking beer mug that you lob at the pub wall to the mining noises and gun reports. I don't think it's Red Dead Redemption 2 levels of kaleidoscopic soundscape, but it's not Rockstar Games' budget either. Each class has its own dwarf fully voiced. The soundtrack is good enough that it is both on sale and people actually buy it and like it. I thought it was pleasant enough, although it's very rare for me to emotionally invest in a video game soundtrack. I thought it was, but as soon as I started thinking about it, the list just started rolling. Death Stranding, Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, Battlefield, Kingdom Come Deliverance, Skyrim, Tetris, Red Dead Redemption 2. It's got banjo music, so it must be good. So yeah, now I come to think of it, I listen to a conspicuous amount of video game music. Make of that what you will. But the soundtrack fits the game perfectly, with notable track names such as Axes Out, Into the Abyss, I Welcome the Darkness, and my personal favourite, Hold My Beard. I don't really know much about music, so I'm uniquely unqualified to discuss the issue really. Sure, I know enough about music to realise that any music with banjos in it will most likely on average be better than music without. The Man Comes Around is one of the greatest songs ever written, and the Tramp Stamps are a bunch of corporate shills shitheads masquerading as an indie TikTok bedroom outfit that are really owned and run by Cobalt Music, one of the biggest music companies in the world. I also know that the epilepsy warning on their music video Sex With Me is a fucking joke. Seriously, it's not the visuals that are the problem, it's the shitty lyrics that are going to give people seizures. My point is, I don't really know how to rate nor classify the Deep Rock Galactic soundtrack, but to my untrained and highly cynical ear, it certainly sounds a little like 80s Renaissance video game inspired dramatic synth. It certainly gels well with the video game action and adds to the tension, even though I'm not sure I would relax at home listening to it, or have it playing in the bedroom whilst I was busting out my best stalker jokes. Besides, when I'm in the bedroom, I tend to listen to elevator music or Christian hymns. I'm paying, so I get to make it as creepy as I fucking well please. I also need to talk about the cosmetic DLC situation, because I noticed on the Steam page the grand total for all the DLC was fairly hefty. I know a lot of this stuff is being mooted as, and I quote, supporting the game, and it is all just cosmetic DLC. It's zero content, zero pay to win, it's just cosmetic items for your dwarf. But still, I can't really see anything too untoward here, but I guess I did this breakdown timeline of corporate acquisition versus DLC release just to see if there was any relationship between the two. If there is meaning here, I can't see it. I guess I looked into it because the initial 2 DLCs seemed legit. A combined £19.38 for a supporters pack and soundtrack for a semi-indie game seems fine by me. And in principle I don't object to cosmetic packs sold externally to the game. I'm not a huge fucking fan, mind, but I'm not necessarily going to shit the bed about it. I guess this piqued my curiosity simply for the reason that the grand total of paid cosmetic DLC packs has now reached £35.94, and that is quite a lot of money for stuff that you can't earn in game. Sure, it's over a 3-year period and they have to keep the lights on, right? I don't really know what I'm saying here, so I'm just going to say this because it's something that we need to remind ourselves about from time to time. I understand that ongoing games need revenue streams if you want them supported long after launch, with dwindling sales, fixed overheads and possibly an old player base, who ain't going to be buying spare copies of the original game for shits and giggles. If you buy a game for £25 and you're still playing it 4 years later, somebody's got to pay for the servers and the free condom machine in the office, right? Just Let's not forget that the whole point of early access is that you are not buying the game, you are paying in advance for the game and then waiting for a year or two for it to be finished. You are doing them the favour. You are investing up front and then waiting for the game to be finished. Instead of getting full funding for the business project, we, the customer, bankroll it by paying up front, and they have our money in the bank with interest until the game is released. I guess I'm just saying that you don't get to go early access and play the poverty card. Not that they did. But if you took a massive leap of faith on this game and bought it on day one of early access with the supporters pack and the soundtrack, that's £45 you invested in a developer for a game that you didn't know for a fact would ever get finished. Then the game releases and they push out another £12 worth of DLC. Then over the next year another £12 worth of DLC. Then another £12 worth of DLC. I guess all I'm saying is that if you already forked out 45 quid in advance for this game, then asking for another £35 for exclusive cosmetics, only available in DLC packs, is a little bit tight, really. I guess £80 all in isn't so bad for 4 years of gameplay, but I'm just noting that the first 2 years was players essentially lending the developer the money to make the game, which wasn't finished. So whilst I don't think there's any corporate fuckery going on here, £35 worth of skins over 23 months post launch is certainly a little bit cheeky, and I will let you decide if they are taking the piss. I guess I'm merely noting that with early access games, when evaluating any discussion of costs and income compared to the longevity of the game, remember that the early access period doesn't really count. That's their financial problem. Whilst nearly every aspect of Deep Rock Galactic thus far has been a positive experience for me, and certainly for the collection of fellow deviant fucks that I associate with, I am, however, compelled to note that despite this game's excellence on many levels, and the developer's decent engagement with the player base, things are not entirely a bed of fucking roses. A few issues were brought to my attention by both a friend of mine and by someone passing on a few issues to me from a veteran player. This was all informal and fairly balanced criticism, but in the interests of respecting their privacy, honouring their confidentiality and maintaining world peace, I'm not going to rat anyone out here and I'm going to keep their identities secret because, you know, that has an air of mystery and drama about it. Some people do have a few complaints about the game, and the issues basically boil down to the following areas. Allegedly, the devs are great at mechanics, but seem a bit naive about community management and possibly to some degree, general management. There were significant issues with the highest difficulty deep dives, where there was a possibility that they could, on rare occasions, bug out and fuck up, thus essentially wasting everyone's time up to that point. Apparently on one occasion the devs claimed a significant bug was fixed, but basically it wasn't really. They just said it was fixed, and then fucked off for the bank holiday anyway. At a very high level, apparently a small percentage of the players could possibly be described as, how can I put this tactfully, obnoxious cocksmokers. And added to this, the developers apparently have neither plans nor intent to do a damn thing about it. They actively don't want to introduce any kind of measures in this regard. Now all this comes with a bunch of caveats. These are not opinions that I got from canvassing lots of players, but from a few people's opinions. Part of this can be chalked up to a naivety on behalf of the admittedly inexperienced developer. And to some degree, the community aspect is as much preference as deficit. Some developers don't want to engage in any form of intervention with the community, policing or otherwise, and kind of respect that position, especially when you consider that community management these days is pretty much equivalent to sinister corporate fucking manipulation. Mordhau famously refused to introduce any chat censorship, and that is not a failure, that is a principled position. and it's better than the situation we have in games like Call of Duty where you can't say, "What the fuck was that, bro?" without the chat censor sometimes biffing out and blocking all your chat with asterisks for the next 3 messages. I'm serious, in one game I said GG and it got replaced with fucking asterisks. So yes, when it comes to policing the community, I will let you be the judge of whether they are useless or actively abstaining. I'm merely pointing out all of this because if you do fall in love with this game and you are a highly competitive and ambitious player, you may well find that eventually you get to the level of play where you are rubbing shoulders with the occasional obnoxious player at high level, and there is precisely fuck all you can do about it other than make a written record of the names and avoid playing with them in the future. Similarly, I'm never even going to see the content that might be bugged, but if you're a high flying super pro competitive gamer, you might. I'm not saying that there is necessarily trouble in paradise. I'm just pointing out that maybe at least one of the toilets might be blocked in the bathrooms. I hope I gave this game a fair hearing, and I mean from both sides. Personally, I think this game is fucking excellent, and I know a lot of people that think it's great too. But I didn't want to gloss over any issues or make out like it's all fingering unicorns and drinking fairy milk, because frankly I do think they're slightly taking the piss with the exclusive cosmetics in the DLC packs, and at very high end there does appear to be at least some frustration with the way the developers have responded to or failed to respond to certain issues. This being said, if you go in with your eyes open and you're a low to mid or high mid tier player, this is a absolutely cracking solo or co-op game. You're probably never going to even see the elite content and do deep dives, and most likely not mind the DLC packs. And like I said, they are not in your grill, they're voluntary purchases, and they're external to the game. I think Deep Rock Galactic excels primarily at being the perfect late night co-op game to play drunk with your friends. It's pitched just right when it comes to balancing gameplay and group dynamics, and if you get too drunk to fucking function, you can always just try easier missions. Similarly, it's a game that you can take more seriously either solo or pugging, with virtually infinite replayability. It's got beer, it's got guns, and it's got throws. What is there not to like? Violent, drunken, dwarf-based cultural appropriation. It's winning on so many levels. But for now, good luck and happy hunting.